Okay, Theresa, you're in business.
Yes.
You guys work at University of Texas. You guys,
Ben does, yeah.
Yes, well, but I'm just saying that's where. Are you guys feeling any of the effects of this quarantine?
With your jobs, you mean?
Is your jobs? Is that?
Well, absolutely. Most of our consumer customers don't want us in their house, or there's two sides. Some of them want us there because they're bored and they want to breathe clean air. Others don't want us there because they're scared, and we get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned the other day that I had gone to Austin, and that was one of the very first things that I noticed was how frightened everybody was. Yeah. I mean, it's weird. It is literally, it's like a tangible fear that everybody has.
I feel like there's like two camps, like you said, but I mean, more as time's progressing, it's like there's this, not really rule following, but
fixing your hair before we start. There you go.
Like rule following camp.
Yeah.
Who are very afraid, and this is what we have to do, and we have to do it to the letter, and that's the way to stay safe,
healthy and alive.
And then we're also getting this like surge of, I don't want to do this anymore. This is driving me crazy. I'll take a risk.
I think a lot more people are getting in that camp.
I think like kind of there's a little bit of a we're entering into the civil unrest chapter of the quarantine, where I think we're just seeing a lot more people who are not negligent, but also are kind of like, I was telling Ashley beforehand, they're kind of like, we got to do this or we got to move on to normal life. Either something's got to happen to where we don't just keep doing this locked away, not seeing anybody, not interacting, not having any kind of normal routine. I think people are getting slowly to their line that makes them
saturation point.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. A lot of the protests that's happening across the country, people are just saying this is nonsense. And I think most people, even though they can see the statistics, I don't think they believe. Especially, well, of course, you're looking at the worst statistics that there is. You're looking at New York, and that doesn't really apply to Kansas. It doesn't apply to much of the Midwest.
I have a theory about that, and that's because we're such a digital culture.
Right.
Everything that we see, we assume travels at the speed of information.
Right.
So, the difference being we see what's going on in New York or in these hotspot places, and we're assuming that's what's happening outside our doors because the information has made it this far. So people think, well, it's out there, right there, not understanding like nothing moves that fast as information and as fast as we process. Even back when this wasn't even here yet, people wanted to react as though it was here. But that's just because we're seeing it, we're hearing it, we're assuming it's here, and there's this gap of, like, biologically, things still take time to travel, and things take time to occur, and incubation takes time. And, I mean, that's a whole another conversation. But I think everybody's assuming that what they see on TV or social media or the news is what's happening right outside their door. And like you said, there's places in the country that literally, counties that don't have one single case, counties that are just completely like, it's hard for us to separate that in our minds.
We are closed up, and I'm mad.
Yeah.
Well, I think we see that saturation, and then people are glued to the TV and glued to social media, the news, and they see one more case pop up in their county, and they lock down.
Yeah.
And they freeze up, and they just, it's insane how emotionally charged this is making everybody.
I also want to...
Oh, no, I was going to say, for us, Ben's boss's wife was the first case here in Austin at UT because they had just traveled to New York. So for us, it kind of hit closer because Ben's job required them, because she was the first case here in Austin, to start preparing early. And then Ben's brother had it for a week, and he's one of the few people all of us know who has had it. So for us, it hit a lot closer, faster, sooner than I feel like everyone else I know has. And I feel in some ways everybody else is like playing catch up. Like my friends and stuff are just a week or two behind.
Right. There is that delay, and that's
Yeah.
with when you have it hit close to home, or when you know people, or it's a lot more in your circle.
Yeah.
It's easier, I think, to comply with. We have to do these things now, but I've wondered before what you were saying about watching the news and being glued to the news. If we didn't have
Yeah.
global news or national news, if everything was just local news and all of our information was just coming from, hey, this is what's going on in Austin, this is what's going
Yeah.
on in your county,
Right.
this is what your leader, your local leadership wants you to do or needs you to do, I think we would still get good information about
Yeah.
what we need to do, but I bet that would quell so much panic because we can't do anything about what's going on
Yeah.
3,000 miles away.
No.
Like we can only deal with what's at our doorstep today, right now, and respond to that. And there's so much, like you said, added pressure because I also feel very stressed out about what's going on in a city that's nowhere remotely close to me nor at risk to me, but because that's just what's getting funneled
It's
in all day.
unwarranted pressure too.
Yeah.
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 Well, you really get the feeling that it's out of control. What do you think is going to happen next? I mean, what do you think the next step is? Obviously, the governor has said we're going to set guidelines for when we're going to begin to break back into what's normal. Of course, that's going to be a big question right there, is
Yeah.
to say
What
what's
is?
normal. I was listening the other day, and who would have ever thought that after 9/11 that we would have to take our shoes off to get on an airplane?
Yeah.
And then that became the normal. I mean, it was something that is horrible. I hate to fly for that very reason. I literally would rather get in the car and drive across country and take 12 hours to get there.
I'm like,
than-
take my shoes.
Well, but it's just, what I'm just saying
There you
is
go.
it's just there's so much regulation now that
Yeah.
was non-existent. I used to fly back in the 90s. It was incredible.
The
I
whole
mean,
family's at the gate waving you
Yeah.
up, buckling you in on
there
the
ain't
plane.
anybody at the gate anymore
No.
waving you on or greeting you.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, so it's just that became the normal for that. Now I'm wondering,
What the new normal will be.
yeah, what's this going to be like? Obviously, I think people are probably going to wash their hands more often, which is a good thing.
Yes.
And I'm not a worst case scenario person. There's reports like, oh, nothing's going to be normal again for years, or nothing's. I think for the most part, humans adapt, and
Yeah.
we're good at adapting. It's how God made us. In that there's
Right.
going to be a lot of adapting. I think we might see like a decrease in super large gatherings, festivals. This all started right around ACL. And that was
Yeah.
unheard of. Remember when it first broke out? I don't know if y'all saw on
Yeah.
social media, but they were like talking about canceling ACL. And I mean, the pushback was like, that's ridiculous. Why would anybody do that? And they ended up canceling it, and for good reason. And I think we probably will see a less occurrence of large-scale conferences and things like that. And I think that's probably responsible, especially if it's something that draws in travel. But
Yeah.
I think that at some point, like I was saying earlier, people are going to want to or have to just kind of put the rubber to the road and
Yeah.
say, like, I have to get back to some semblance of my normal.
I've seen
Yeah.
on a lot of in a lot of Christian circles, they say this is going to be the downfall of the mega churches, and we're going to go back to a resurgence sort of home churches and smaller group meetings and stuff.
I think that may happen for a little bit, but I think it won't take people long to adjust.
Yeah.
There's a reason they go to a mega church,
Yeah.
and the reason that they don't go to a small church. And I think that people are going to end up getting back to, I think those things won't change. I think even football games, I think that we are so
I didn't think about sports.
driven by sports. I'm talking about our general society.
Yeah.
I think people will adjust for a little bit. You may find some people at first wearing masks, but it's not going to take long until that begins to dissipate.
Well, here's the
It
deal.
begins-
Humans are the most, we're super
Resilient.
adaptive, and
Yeah.
we don't become innovative until we have to. There's so many big issues. I mean,
Right.
I think back to like that movie Apollo 13. They essentially, these guys are in trouble.
Yeah.
There's no solution, so they basically put these scientists in a room with a box and said, I'm giving you this box and you have like a day to create a solution.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't usually
With only these
come
supplies.
up with a solution. Yeah, with only these supplies. You have to fix this.
Yeah.
And I think that we as people, as humans, our brains don't kick into high gear a lot of times until they have to, or we're under pressure. And so, yeah, we don't have, there's a lot of things like that I'm like, well, there's not really a clear solution. But as the pressure mounts, I think we're going to see actually this, I mean, this is kind of like a silver lining optimism, but I think we could enter into this time in humanity where it's like we bring forth so many, with God's help, so many new ideas, things that we've never thought of that are suddenly solutions because we've just never had to. I mean, even like in the workforce, there are people doing work from home stuff right now that I know their jobs have always consistently, companies have said it's not possible. We don't view it as an option to work from home.
And they're forced.
Yeah.
And
their people are
forced to.
probably more productive
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
some level, unless they're homeschooling.
And that's the thing. Like, who's going to, when this is over, yeah, right. When this is over, I think that there's going to be so much of a, wow, we really pushed the envelope and found solutions to things like, sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They're going to find a solution. They are going, even if it means they have to do things a little bit differently, smart people are going to get in a room and say, we have to make this work with these supplies in this amount of time.
Yep.
And I just have faith that they'll go, there we go. Here's a
we
solution.
can do that. Theresa, you guys have Top Hat Chimney Sweep, which is kind of outside the boundaries of my even ability to understand what all that means. The only thing I think about chimneys is Santa Claus, so, but obviously, you're having to go into people's homes. Is that affecting you to this point that you're having to create new ideas? Are you doing things different now?
We are. Our technicians are all required now, of course, to take all safety precautions. We've got sanitizer on vehicles, or we've never done that before, and it makes sense. You're walking into somebody else's home, their own, their surroundings. So those things make sense. I think the biggest concern that we have as a service industry is that people don't want to take care of things because they don't want to bring people into their space, right? They're told don't get 6 feet within people's space, so they're concerned about bringing people into their homes. I completely understand that. I think a lot of businesses, whether you're considered essential or not, ours is definitely essential. We don't want somebody's house to burn down because they're doing a ton of laundry, right?
Yeah.
But I think small business, to me, is the one that's going to suffer the most in this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Most of them work on a very shoestring budget, and their biggest concern, our biggest concern as a company today, is to keep employees covered. And I'm so grateful for the PPP program. We can do that. But a lot of small businesses don't have employees, therefore they have nothing to qualify for funding with, and so it's difficult for them. But I think business is going to look different for us. We have to now resell our value over and over and over again, and it just looks different. It's not a luxury item anymore. It's a safety issue. Let's make sure your home is safe.
Yeah. If you're going to be in it, you have to. I mean, it's an added.
Yes, and for us, chimneys is part of what we do, right? The other pieces is dryer vents and air ducts, and so if somebody's in home breathing toxic air in their house, we can
That's a
solve
problem.
that problem, right?
That's a lot easier to sell that, you could suffocate if you don't hire us. I understand. Okay.
Well, you may not suffocate, but you might, over-contaminate over and over and over again.
I got a question here that I want to ask all three of you. Allison, I can start with you. What passage, revelation, truth, what is it that you're leaning on mostly at this time? Or is there any specific thing? Is it just a general thing, or do you have any particular songs, scriptures, thoughts? What's in your mind that's sustaining you during this time of quarantine that the country's facing?
Actually, for Easter, I got Nicholas a book, and it's called Found, I believe. It's basically like a baby version or a toddler version of the 23rd Psalm, and it's pictures, and it takes the whole 23rd Psalm, and it just really breaks the verses down to just a simple sentence. I feel, you are my good shepherd. You make my heart feel calm. And I was like reading through it, and it kind of occurred to me that I had been already kind of thinking a lot about the 23rd Psalm, just for random reasons. I'm kind of in this word study on what a shepherd is and what they do and the way they feel about their flock. And I think that it is in the time of so much uncertainty, because it's hard to know. Am I scared of the virus? I don't know. Maybe, not really. But there's all these other implications too. The world's changing, and what about our jobs? And what about our family? And what about all these other pillars that aren't just am I sick or not sick? All these other pillars of life that are so unsure, and you're so unsure how to lean on. And I find that I kind of keep going back to just meditating on that He's the Good Shepherd. And He's not just a God that is aware of us, and He's not just a God that likes us, and He's not just a God that's involved. He's the Good Shepherd, and that implies such a intimate relationship where He doesn't just care how we do. He really intimately cares for our well-being, and not just care like, oh, I love you. Like, a shepherd takes care of the sheep. He checks their wool, and he checks the ground that they're on, and it's in His best interest for the flock to be calm and at peace. A shepherd doesn't want to deal with a flock that's panicked, because when sheep are panicked, they scatter, they panic, and it's in His best interest. It's His desire for them to be at peace and calm. And I think just kind of like meditating on that and realizing like He's my good shepherd. He is guiding me. He's leading me. He wants to make my heart into a peaceful, calm place has been really just where it's like, okay, well, I don't have solutions and I don't know the answer to those things, but I do know right now today that I have a good shepherd and that He's leading me, and I don't have to worry about those things because I can't deal with them. I can't fix them, but He can fix them. And we're not there where we have to deal with them. We aren't to the bridge yet where we have to cross into that, but we'll get there. And when we get there, my good shepherd is going to make sure that it's okay.
Yeah.
Ashley, you and Ben have been missionaries in different parts of the world, Malaysia, Mexico, where else?
Indonesia, India, Singapore.
Yeah, you've been around the block, and you've seen a lot of I want to say tragedy. You've seen a lot of people that were impoverished. You've seen a lot of people. You've been right in the middle of all of that. So this isn't your first rodeo to be sequestered. You've been stuck before. During these times, and especially during this time, I'll ask you the same question I asked Allison. Of course, you're over our missions department here at Family Worship Center, and you kind of have the heartbeat of the different countries, different missions. What do you think about? Do you have a scripture, or is there a song or kind of a meditation that you have that really kind of settles you during these times?
I do. Specifically for this time, it has been Psalm 131. It says, "O people of God, wait patiently and trust in the Lord." And I just, that has just been my heartbeat. I have felt this is a season of rest for us as Christians and believers. I feel like the earth is being shaken, and He has something coming after He's done shaking it. And He wants us to be rested and equipped and ready to go march on when this is done. And so unlike a lot of people who are like, we got to get out there, we got to start praying and stuff, it's like, no, wait, it's coming. I think that is coming soon, but I don't think it's here yet. And so I am just enjoying this time with my family. I mean, I just feel so blessed to have this time with my husband and my kids. Ben's still working from home. And we feel very fortunate. But even when we've been in situations, you kind of have to wait for the dust to settle.
But that's huge. That is huge, because there is truly a sense that when something you feel is out of order, you kind of run around with your hair on fire trying to panic. Got to fix this. And sometimes that really is the time to just be still.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's just wait just a minute. God is still in control of what's happening.
Yeah, and verse 2 of that compares us as sitting in our mother's, like a weaned baby sitting in its mother's lap. And I just love that. I just love that picture of us just sitting there, be still, resting in God right now in this time.
And that's such, just to add on if I can, just really quick to that, I was thinking too, that's a discipline that so many of us don't have.
Yeah.
And I think that our need to control and our, we tend to say like, I have to do. It gets back into that almost works mindset. I have to accomplish. I have to do. I have to control.
Performance mindset.
And that's a discipline that you literally have to condition and exercise the ability to say, I'm going to wait.
Yeah.
Waiting is not apathy. Waiting is not disobedience. Waiting is not being lazy. Waiting is just a strategic, like you said, waiting for dust to settle. If somebody's about to, rush into a crisis, I'm thinking of like, emergency response stuff. Sometimes they have to let things settle so they can analyze correctly. Right. And the dust it doesn't do them any good to run into a dust storm. Yeah. Sometimes they have to wait so they can analyze and see, and then they're more effective than they would have been if just for the sake of feeling like they were accomplishing something. Yeah. They're rushing blindly into something.
Well, and when Ben was in the military, I mean, your military personnel are ready at all times to take off. They just need that call, that order. And I think that's so applicable here. We just are waiting for God to say, okay, move, let's go. And
you have been activated.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Theresa, what about you? What during this time, now you're, of course, from the business world, you're looking at it, and I'm sure that there's got to have been a little panic, not a big panic, but when you seriously, I mean, for people to say, I'm just, I'm not concerned at all, I think that's disingenuous, especially when you say this is my livelihood and I've got people that I'm paying and I got to pay them like in 3 days. I've got to pay them, and so that puts pressure on you as a believer. Now you work with families, you work with married couples, but you also have multiple businesses going yourself, but with you guys, what do you lean on mostly?
So for me, it's 2 Timothy 1:7. For God does not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And to me, fear is this spirit that's just looming over everybody right now, and goes back to that panic mode. When you're fearful, you start lashing out and barking and maybe reacting in ways that don't make sense and create more problems and solutions. But the next step of it is power. We have the power to control, how we rest, how we respond. Yeah. And then the final piece is the sound mind. I think the sound mind comes to something that's just been speaking to me over and over again is, what do I know is truth? What do I believe? And what am I going to do about it? And for the last couple of weeks, those questions have been coming back to me. What do I know is truth? So when I look at payroll, or I look at having to make new decisions with business, or how I mentor people in this time, we keep going back to what is the truth? And then what do I believe? In this situation, we can choose to believe whatever they want us to believe, or we can believe what we know is true.
Absolutely.
And then finally, what are we going to do about it? Because we have to make that conscious decision of, this is what I'm going to do, and then be okay with what we choose to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Are you finding better opportunity to minister? I don't necessarily mean that we go around preaching at everybody, but the fact is, I'm finding more people open to the gospel right now than they have been in a long time. I'm sure that God has heard prayers that He hasn't heard their voices in a very long time.
That's one thing too. The church may not be in the building, but I'm telling you, I don't know anybody who is. The field is ripe with
so
work.
Yes.
Anybody I know, any pastor I know, any really just Christian I know who looks to do what God asks them to do. I don't know anybody who's just hanging out at home eating food. I mean, I've had more opportunities to pray with people. I've had more opportunities to encourage people, and like you said, they're open. Right.
Yeah.
They're open in a way that they're rarely open. Yeah. They've been sequestered from all their normal distractions, excuse me. And it's like suddenly between that and between feeling afraid, they're going, somebody tell me
I'm going to be okay.
I'm going to be okay. Somebody secure me. And hello, I know a guy, like I can help. I can point you in the direction. And it's like there's this beautiful opportunity to be the church.
Yeah.
I don't consider the church taking a break right now. I think everybody's just as busy and active as we are when we're meeting every week. We're just doing it.
This gives us a bigger opportunity, absolutely. From a married perspective, so many people have that pressure in their relationship, and they're spending so much time together, and then now they're frustrated together, they're spending time together. They don't have the quiet time because their kids are all home too, and so we're finding a lot more opportunity to minister to married couples just because they're frustrated, and But the other piece of it, I think one thing that all of us can do, and I've been practicing myself, is just reaching out to people and making I care about you connections. Calling people.
Intentionality.
Yes.
And asking them, how can I pray for you? And then that opens them up. I've had so many people cry on the phone with me because they're like, oh my gosh, you can pray about this and you can pray about that. And a lot of people don't know how to pray, so they just don't. They ask for prayers, and they don't know what to say. They think they have to say something specific for it to be answered, and so it's been a really cool opportunity to reach out to people and say, let's just pray right now.
You're speaking of something unexpected. Have between all three of you, have you had any unexpected favorite moments with your family that's happened since this has come up? Anything, Theresa, let's start with you. Anything unexpected?
Well, Portia is a lot more fun to be around now. No, I'm
teenagers.
She is, it's awesome it's awesome to see how connected we are as a family again. When I'm not able to go out and do my Mary Kay business at night, I'm at home. We're having dinner around the table together. We're playing games together. We're watching shows together. It's a different environment. And one of the things Royal has said for a long time is we are too busy. And maybe we
Ben
are a
says
little
that
bit
too.
too busy. But now that's not an excuse anymore. And it's cool because we're spending a lot more time. Now we're not going anywhere. On Easter, we were out in the front yard playing baseball, and that was just really cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Ashley?
We had so much fun. We decided to go bless a bunch of our friends, and we went and bought three 12 dozen bags of stuffed Easter eggs and went and egged 10 of our friends' houses. And it was just,
it was fun to receive.
The kids loved it. They really got a hold of it is more blessed to give than to receive. And to see their, especially one of my children, she's just always, when you take her to the store to buy a present for a friend, but I want this. And you're like, okay, but this is not about you. To see her little perspective shift and her really get a hold of that was just so fun. And it was so fun to see our friends and just be a blessing to them in this time.
And they did it with social distancing.
And we did.
They stood in the yard. They came to my house, and I got a knock on the door, and I went and opened it, and they're back in the yard all together waving.
Yeah.
There's stuff all over the porch, and it was really fun. On the receiving.
I mean, Ben and I were like, we wish we could get paid to do this every day because this was the funnest thing ever. I mean,
that's awesome.
If we could.
How about you, Allie?
I think, like you were saying, it's so easy for our families to just get into routines, and this is just the way it is. This is the routine. Justin works night shift, so we're on an opposite schedule a lot, and it's just me and Nicholas. And with him, he's still working a night shift, but with him working from home, what I have found is, not having to factor his commute in, and really taking advantage of the days that he's at home. We just have to be home together. We've been so much more intentional about just spending time together and kind of learning each other's rhythm. And that's not something you would think you would have to learn about your spouse and your kids because they're the most intimate people in your life. But you don't realize until routines are removed that oh wow, there's a lot of unknowing that gets built up. You know what I mean? We've been on a schedule and we've just gone with the schedule, and there's been a lack of intimacy in that. There's been you'd prefer to do things kind of this way because normally you just do them and go, and I do my stuff and go, and we
Yeah.
don't kind of overlap each other's space. And so I know that the other day we sat with Nicholas. You know, he's only one, so he's not as interactive. It's not like we can really get into discussions or do a lot of interactive stuff, but we've been taking time to sit together and have one meal a day, breakfast or dinner or whatever, and we sit him just there at the table with us. And I mean, we would do that occasionally before, but just really being intentional. And it's like watching him enjoy that and just kind of seeing from his perspective, even as a little baby, this is my family, this is my
Unit.
foundation, this is my unit,
That's
and
huge.
knowing that he gets so much, you know, security from that. And like I said, it's not that we can't or don't ever have meals together, but we're just on pause, so there's a lot more availability to be present
Yeah.
in that.
Portia, this morning, she's in military, and she had to do her PT because she's in the National Guard. Anyway, one of her requirements was to write an essay about how quarantine and how COVID-19 has impacted her life and her family. And she read it to me. And one of the things she said is, I'm having a lot more fun with my parents. Like, they're getting to know me better. And I'm like, yes. I mean, it's so cool. You know, we can look at ups and downs and highs and lows with it, but I think, you know, we just got to make the most of it and embrace it as a family.
It's like there's, you know, I don't know what it is about us as humans, but it's like we're really good at autopiloting, and we'd like to think we're not. But this has taught me that intentionality and presence are not something that just happen. You can literally live with someone, live with humans, and see them every day in your space and have zero intentionality or zero exchanges of, you know, purposeful presence, just on purpose.
Yeah, but let me interrupt here, because here's the thing. Right now there is a surprising amount of people that are separating, divorcing.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I read in China
incredible.
when they left, somebody had told me that there was like a news story that when China lifted their original quarantine, that one area had like 80 people file for divorce in one day.
Wow.
I mean, it was like...
Yeah, they said that they
I'm
had
at
so
it.
many people getting divorces that the court systems couldn't get to them all.
Well, I think they're having to face each other now.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
but that's the deal, and that's what is the difference between we as Christians? Because as I hear all three of you talk, I'm not finding. Not once have you said, I want to throw Royal out in the yard. I mean, you haven't said that, nor have you been. And
I was warned. No, I'm just kidding.
well, but I mean, but that's. Do you think that's just the perspective of someone who is a believer and someone maybe? And I'm not saying that all of these people that are getting divorced are not believers, but are they active? Are they someone who is living the Christian lifestyle?
I think that as a believer, and Theresa's going to be better to answer this because she does marriage stuff. You know, you counsel, both of you do. So I'm just going to chime in as the shortest married person here with not a lot of marriage. But I feel like, because I know a lot of people, and I don't mean to belittle or act like it's just, you know, I know people right now who they are not in a good place as they're. And I don't mean like it's, you know, they are worn to a nub with their family and how much they're, you know, they are not in a supportive. I would more say they've all been so out of practice with just being together and facing each other,
That's a
like
good
you
way to
said, that they are really going through the ringer. It's not, you know, I'm not belittling like, oh, it's not, they're not happy.
They've lost their outlet.
Well,
Yes. And I think that I mean, at least for me, there is we're good. I think when we belong to the faith, we understand that there are certain things you just choose to do.
Yeah.
Not because you feel them. That's kind of what faith is a lot of times.
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're doing. I don't understand where you are, but I am choosing to put my faith in you for this.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that kind of puts us on the path to, even with family, you know, I want to throw you in the yard. I want to lock myself in the garage and sit in the car for 3 hours and not be around anybody. But there is a choice that a little bit you kind of have to be responsible for just yourself saying, this isn't fun, I don't like it, but I'm going to choose to do XYZ. I'm going to choose to view the things about you that I do like, even though right now all the things that I don't like are screaming at me.
Yeah.
And like I said, y'all have better insight, but I just know for me, because I just talked to somebody the other day who, I mean, she's in a bad place. She's just very worn down. She's very exhausted.
Yeah.
And she loves her family, but her family is draining on all of that.
Yeah.
And she's not a bad person. She loves her family, but
Right.
it's like they're very out of practice.
Well, I think so much of culture, so much of the world, media, everything puts pressure on you to find, what makes you happy, to find your best life and to hustle and chase it as hard as you can. And you can do that in the context of and me married and stuff. But when you can't get out there and do all of that, and you don't have a way to focus on you, you're stuck with the people and when they're not doing that, I think the difference with Christians is, or at least I know Ben and I, we try to outserve each other constantly. It's like, I'm going to make him breakfast. And he's like, well, I'm going to do this for her. And we're constantly focusing on the needs of the
What a
others
guy.
and how we can add and better. I mean, I took it very seriously when it said, when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing. I want to be a good thing to my husband.
Yeah.
And I strive every day to be the best spouse for him. And I think that's the difference between a lot of Christians and a lot of other people. And I think it's just a mind shift. I think it's something that people can tweak.
It's like a servant mindset.
Yeah.
Which
Which is exactly
we
the-
know lots of unsaved people who have very happy, they're not struggling with it.
Yeah.
But I do think there is an extra call in the faith. You have to, we're constantly having to realign ourselves to be servant minded.
Well,
Yeah,
are you in it for you or are you in it for them?
Well, so many people, though, are going through this. Teresa, what do you think about this?
I think, to both of their points, we have to, when you're married, you have to choose to lay down self and become a unit.
Yeah.
But I do think, a lot of non-faith households, and even with faith households, people have a hard time dealing with not being able to control anything.
Yeah.
And so when they can't control
Absolutely.
anything, they focus on what they can control, which is, I'm just going to take care of me. And if me just taking care of me means that you don't get what you need, then that's fine. Because they're operating in a mindset of, I'm going to control what I can.
Yeah.
And people are giving up quicker. They're having a harder time
Well, that's
being.
a great point.
And
that is a great
Yeah, who's your source is really the question.
Yes.
Is
So
God your
when-
source or is your spouse your source?
Right. So the other piece to that, just like what you said, social-wise, TV-wise, a lot of people are glued to the TV, and either they are watching the news, which is escalating fear, or they're watching shows on Netflix that make you, again, say, take care of you, have what
Yeah.
you want, be who you want to be, or have an affair. I mean, there's just so many things that are on TV, and all of their sources coming from media, and they don't have God as their source, and so they're making decisions based on what their source is. So I think it's very, very challenging, and when we talk with people, our prayer with them is, let us humble ourselves. Let us remember that we are a unit together. And so we get to spend a lot more time with people in prayer, but I think it has to do with that fear mindset, what can I control, and again, that selfishness. People are taught from a very young age, be self-sufficient, self-sufficient, self-sufficient. And now you're married and you're told to not necessarily don't be self-sufficient, but now you aren't selfish anymore. You need to think of the other person.
And
Yeah.
people have been also, I think, we've been so distracted that we don't have to address.
You don't face it.
We don't have, things that
You can escape it.
I don't have to worry about the fact that my spouse does X, Y, Z, and that really just makes me crazy, or that bothers me, or whatever. I'm going to go to work and I'm going to do the things that I can control, and I'm going to focus on my
You do
career.
you.
And I'll come home and take care of everybody and manage my home. But there's this ability, I think, all this time to be able to say, I'm going to distract myself from things that I don't want to face. And
Yeah.
a lot of that is pulled out of the wall now. You don't have distractions. You have no choice but to sit and look at the things that a lot of times maybe you've spent years distracting from and not wanting to deal with, and it hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
That explains a lot. Anyway, all right. One final question.
Okay.
Okay, this one's one that I have to ask. What is your guilty pleasure junk food during this quarantine? Last question.
I have eaten way too much ice cream.
Ice cream. What kind?
Well, right now it's diet ice cream, so I don't feel terrible.
We'll get you some Bluebell, Theresa.
Like, I'm taking you to H-E-B now.
should quarantine with diet ice cream.
My parents keep making these drop-off deliveries at my house of all these kind of baked goods. So usually it's a scoop of ice cream on some kind of baked good.
Diet ice cream?
Diet, they have such a thing. And
Really?
it doesn't
They have
taste
keto
terrible.
ice cream and stuff,
Keto
too.
ice cream.
Yeah, but you never trust food that says, and it really doesn't taste bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Ice cream. All right. What's yours, Ashley?
Easter candy. I love Easter candy, as this one can attest.
Yes.
I hoard it, so I have a supply of it
has it all
for the
year long.
rest of the year.
Yes,
so
I need to come to your house.
I was looking for chocolate last night.
Cadbury mini eggs are.
Oh, wow.
I don't really care for
sold out.
chocolate.
They're sold out.
She got me hooked on them, and I, on one of my grocery trips, was like, maybe I can snag a couple of bags.
Oh,
Diet ice cream is available if you want.
I bet that's not running off the shelf.
I intentionally did not go to the store the whole week before Easter, so Monday morning after Easter, I could be at Walmart at 7
be
a.m. when they
surprised.
open to get my Cadbury eggs.
That's
I think we're
intentional.
gonna
And the milk
see
and stuff,
This
so.
year, though, I wouldn't be surprised if everybody has like nothing to do but sit and eat holiday candy. That they're
Yes.
going to be like, we don't have any left over. It's all gone. Everybody's been home eating Easter candy.
What's,
But I'm so grateful for all the people that are doing the exercise videos online.
Yeah.
See,
That's
they're
for
keeping
sure.
us. It's a
yeah,
balancing
I
act.
can watch them for hours.
Right?
Okay. What about yours, Allie?
If I had to guess, I mean, because not a lot of my life has changed. I stay home with
Yeah.
Nicholas, and so it's not like I'm not working now, or I'm not, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I mean, I think I've been into toast, which
Okay.
a guilty-
Never mind.
She stopped burning it,
What's
though.
on
That
it?
is the accomplishment.
My-
Let's go
my
there.
I
guilty pleasure
have
junk
found
food.
that toast is artisan. You got to make it right. You have to have the butter at the right temperature.
Yes,
There's variation of toppings. And it is a guilty pleasure because if it's midnight and I want a snack, I probably shouldn't be eating a big old piece of buttered bread, but I'm going to eat toast.
And she doesn't burn it now. Let's look at this as an
Okay, well,
accomplishment.
yeah, okay.
I'm proud of her.
Increase my skill. What's your guilty
Yeah.
food eating pleasure?
Oh, all of it. I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, because somebody will buy us a cake. Why anyone would bring us a whole cake, I don't know. But I don't eat it all at once. So what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll cut off a
Monday,
little tiny slice of it.
Wednesday,
And I'll walk back about 20 minutes later and I'll cut off a little tiny
need the
slice
other
of it.
piece of that,
Yeah,
right?
seriously. And in about 4 or 5 hours, I have eaten the entire cake. I can't button my pants, but I have eaten the entire cake. Oh, chocolate's always mine.
I've just
chocolate.
not been
I-
on too much of a sugar kick,
No.
thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, God bless you. All right, guys, this has been wonderful. You guys are,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
guys
thank
are a great, you're a great panel. Thank you for all you do, and all of your great conversation. And what we'll do is we'll set this up and come back.
All
You know,
right.
they say women have 3 times as many words as men.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
So your female panels will probably,
Yes.
we could do this again in 20 minutes.
Allie and I,
We
could,
have
Allie,
plenty to
yeah,
say.
we can literally talk all day to each
You-
other
you
and not
put
get
in
bored.
You put in a quarter and you get $1's
Yeah,
worth. I
we've done
understand.
it.
I don't think any of us will be low
Yeah.
on word counts today, so
I'm sure
we're
Theresa
happy
can.
to contribute.
You
Yeah.
guys are terrific. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you, sir.